Hello, nice to have you back at Art for Everybody. My name is Evi Steiner-Böhm. I'm an artist from Germany, and these two little figures here are called Pedro and Rosa, and they sometimes help me in my videos to explain things so that they are easier to understand. This is a video for absolute beginners who have never ever painted a face, or as we call it more sophisticated, a portrait before. The video has 3 chapters. In the first chapter we're going to talk about skin tones, how you can mix them from basic colors. In the second chapter I'm going to show you how you paint an eye, a nose and a mouth and the hair. And in the third chapter you will see me doing the portrait, starting from the drawing, then taking a template and then painting the portrait that you see here. So the first thing you have to do when you want to paint a face or a portrait is, apart from the drawing of course, to find out the kind of skin tones your person has. And I find that the easiest way to mix skin tones that are harmonious is to use only basic colors. And basic colors meaning yellows, reds, blues, and of course white. Because as soon as you use more colors, it's difficult to get them all harmonized. So for my portrait today, I'm going to use titanium white, cadmium yellow, and then a warm red, which is cadmium red, and a cool red, which is crimson, a warm blue, which is ultramarine blue, and a cool blue, which is Parisian blue. You could, of course, use other reds, blues, or yellows if you have them. Just try and find out which of the colors suits your person best. Then, for those who haven't seen the video about drawing, as a beginner, do not hesitate to use photographs. It's very helpful if you have your person here and you can, compare the colors that you mix here, whether they fit the color over there. There is absolutely nothing wrong with it. Now, before we start mixing, I'd like to point out a few things. If you have a photograph like this one, which is taken outside, you have many different light sources. You have the direct light source from the sun, you have the blue light source from the sky, and of course you have other light sources which come from reflecting colors from trees or from the meadows or whatever. So you have to take that into consideration. And if you look at Stephen's photograph, you have here the very warm lights and you have the cooler lights over here. Like this one is sort of greenish. You have a bluish light up here and you have very warm skin tones here. The ear and the hair, this seems all very warm. And you have to take that into consideration when you mix your tones now, that you have many, many different skin tones. It's not enough to have 3 or 4, but sometimes you will need like 10 or 12. I've tried to find out the different tones for you with my computer program, and you see the photograph with all the different skin tones now. And if you can mix these, that's very enough. But as soon as you want to paint in an impressionistic style, like I do, you can, of course, interpret the colors. You can add blues and greens here, or you can add real reds here. And that's a very personal decision. You will see me doing that, but I will now try and mix the tones I see here so that you can see what I mean. And of course, what is also important is the color of your surface. I'm going to use a gray surface, so I will try the colors on a gray surface as well. Gray is a very neutral surface. You could try any other colored surface, but you will see in a minute that this is very important that you try that out first. Okay, now I will try and mix some of the warmer tones over here. And I use the warm basic colors for that, meaning cadmium yellow and the cadmium red. And this is a kind of orange. And you can immediately see that the gray of my surface cools it down, so it doesn't look as warm as on the white surface over here. And if I add more white, it gets a lot lighter. And if I come to the sort of half shadow here, I would add a blue. Let's try the warm blue. That was too much. And if I don't like that, I can use the cooler red as well. Mix them together. And try the cooler blue. I need a very dark tone, which is around the eyes. And I can also interpret that and say I see it as a sort of violet skin tone. This is something we could use for the lips, because the lips are also skin tones. This is something, if you interpret the cool shadows on the left side, you could add in here, make it a little more natural, etc., etc. You can see that I get many different tones which I can use. And of course, you have to decide for yourself now which of the tones you've just mixed fit for your person. The last thing we need is a very dark color for the hair and for the eyes. And the best way is to mix them from your basic colors without using white. It's a very dark brown. With ultramarine blue, it gets even darker. And if you want to get it lighter, you simply add yellow and white. Now in this second part of the video, I would like to show you how you paint the different parts of the face, give you some tips for that, and then I will show you how I do the rough block-in stage of a painting. And mind you, this is a video for absolute beginners. If you are somebody who has never ever painted a face before, you will find it very difficult to see all the different tones, the lights and the shadows in a face. So if you don't succeed at the very first time, don't get frustrated. This takes a lot of practice, and even if you've done it many times, you might make mistakes and you would have to paint over it again. But the good thing about acrylics is that you have the chance to correct your mistakes immediately, and you don't have to wait till the paint is dry, like in oil painting. Okay, now I would like to show you how to paint eyes first, and what you have to know about painting eyes. And that is what I already told you with drawing. If the person looks straight at you, you do not see the full iris. You almost see this part, but this part is most probably covered for 1/3. And also the eyelid casts a shadow on the iris, so the iris is a little darker up here and a little lighter down there. And you have to know that the iris is transparent, which means if the light hits the eye from here and you have the main light here, then the light shines right through the iris and comes out here again. And so this part of the iris has to be lighter than this one. And if you make it lighter, be sure not to use too much white, but always dim the white with a little yellow, because white always makes the color go cold, and we don't want a cold color here. Okay, now we can do the pupil with a very dark blue, and also you use this blue and mix it with the brown of our eyes and do this dark brim around the eyes with that very, very dark brown. And the light in the eye is also not really white, but always has some shade of your color in it. And the white of the eye is of course not a pure white, but also has some of the colors you use in your eye in it. And again, up here it's darker, and it also gets darker closer to the lid and in the corner of the eyes. Now, if you do your own portrait, you have to watch closely, of course, from where the light comes. This is only an ideal eye. If you have the light coming from here, it might look a little different. Now, as for the eyelashes, they are dark. And if you want to paint eyelashes, you would have to paint your skin up here first and then paint the darker eyelashes over it. Now the tear gland, which you see here, has always some sort of reddish color in it. And also depending on how lighted this area is, this can be darker or lighter, and sometimes you see some fluid in it. But these are all things you have to watch very closely with your portrait. Now, the second thing which might be difficult is the mouth. And usually your mouth is a skin tone as well, as I just said. It's a little more reddish, like the rest of your skin tones, and the upper lip usually is darker than the lower lip. And you mix that by simply adding white and a little of the warmer red for the lower lip. And this light on the lower lip, of course, is again something you have to watch closely. Whether you see it on just one side or on both sides, or whether the light in the shadow or in the shade is a little cooler. This is something there is not really a rule for that. Okay, and then we have this very dark line which separates the lower lip from the upper lip. And to paint that, we mix a very dark color but not too cold, not too much blue. And try not to make it too regular. Can be thicker and thinner. Okay, the next thing I would like to show you is how you paint the nose, but that comes from shading the parts around the eyes. So what I would advise you as a beginner is to do the block-in of your skin now first. I try to do the lighter parts first, the darker parts first, and then I add all my middle tones. So let me show you how I would do that. So I see very light parts here. And then I see darker parts, which are already in the shadow. So I add a little blue, but still make it fairly warm. And then I get gradually darker, still using the warmer skin tones. And this is how the nose will slowly get its form. In the next chapter, I'm going to let you watch how I do this portrait in time lapse, and you will see how I very gradually model the nose with the darker tones around the eyes and adding lights on the nose so to make it stand out of the face. The last thing I would like to show you is the hair, because the most common mistake of beginners here is that they do the hair too regular. So what you have to do with your brush strokes is you have to watch closely how the natural hair grows. And I always start with the darker parts of the hair and then add the light strands of the hair after that. So I hope this is enough of the detail work so that you can understand what I will be doing in the next chapter. I'm going to let you watch the whole process in time lapse, starting from the drawing and from the block-in stage, going into more and more details until the portrait is finished. So I hope I could help you with my tips for portrait painting. Enjoy the last chapter, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next video. Until then, have a very good time. See you soon.